What if everything you thought you knew about the dawn of human civilization, about the very genesis of our species, was merely a carefully constructed illusion? Imagine a truth so profound, so utterly disruptive, that it could unravel the entire tapestry of modern understanding, from our oldest religious texts to the most revered scientific theories of evolution. This is not merely a philosophical exercise. It is the journey into the heart of a mystery etched into the very foundations of human history, hidden in plain sight within the ancient sands of Mesopotamia. For millennia, humanity has looked to the heavens, to the boundless expanse of the cosmos, for answers to our deepest questions about origin and purpose. But what if those answers weren't found in distant, theoretical celestial bodies, but in the very ground beneath our feet, inscribed on clay tablets from a civilization that rose with astonishing speed and sophistication? We are talking about the Sumerians, the enigmatic people who, seemingly overnight, birthed the foundational elements of complex society, writing, mathematics, astronomy, law, and monumental architecture in a world otherwise still grappling with primitive existence. Their legacy, preserved in countless cuneiform texts, speaks not of gradual development but of divine intervention, of powerful beings who descended from the sky. These beings, revered as gods, were known to them as the Anunnaki. The term Anunnaki itself resonates with an ancient authority, translating roughly from Sumerian as those who from heaven to earth came. This phrase alone conjures images far more substantial than mythical deities inhabiting ethereal realms. It suggests a physical arrival, a tangible presence. For centuries, mainstream archaeology and theology have dismissed these accounts as mere allegories, poetic expressions of natural phenomena, or the fervent imaginings of early man struggling to comprehend the unknown. But what if the literal interpretation, the one staring back at us from every translated tablet, holds the key to a truth far more startling? What if these gods were not divine in the spiritual sense, but rather highly advanced extraterrestrial beings whose arrival on Earth fundamentally altered the course of biological and societal development? This narrative challenges us to shed preconceived notions, to look beyond the accepted dogma, and to consider the audacious possibility that our story is not entirely our own. It forces a radical re-evaluation of every archaeological dig, every ancient text, every genetic marker that defines us. The implications are staggering, reverberating through every facet of our collective existence, from the very blueprint of our DNA to the societal structures we inhabit even today. The scent of dust, the whisper of ancient winds, the glint of sunlight on forgotten artifacts, these are the only witnesses to a story that demands to be heard, to be understood, to be confronted. The stage is set, not in a classroom, but in the very theater of history itself, where the lines between myth and reality blur into an uncomfortable yet undeniably compelling vision of our past. If this beginning already has you questioning what you thought you knew, imagine what lies ahead. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because here, every video reveals something few dare to show. The geographical cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, an ancient land situated between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, now modern-day Iraq, witnessed a burst of innovation unparalleled in human history. Around 4500 BCE, seemingly out of nowhere, the Sumerian civilization emerged, not as a gradual evolution from hunter-gatherer societies, but as a fully formed, complex, and sophisticated culture. It wasn't a slow crawl, but an astonishing sprint. Imagine walking through the dusty, sun-baked streets of Ur or Uruk, bustling metropolises that predate the pyramids of Egypt by centuries, where merchants bartered, scribes meticulously etched symbols onto clay tablets, and priests tended to towering ziggurats, The architecture was monumental, the social structure hierarchical, and the understanding of the cosmos, as depicted in their astronomical charts, was breathtakingly advanced for a people supposedly in their infancy. This wasn't just a simple village. This was a burgeoning empire of intellect and organized society, a stark contrast to their contemporaries across the globe. What truly sets the Sumerians apart, and what lends immense weight to the Anunnaki theory, are their extensive and detailed cuneiform tablets. Thousands upon thousands of these clay documents have been unearthed over the last 2 centuries, painstakingly translated by dedicated scholars across institutions from the British Museum to the University of Pennsylvania. These aren't vague fables. They are comprehensive records encompassing everything from economic transactions, legal codes like the Code of Ur-Nammu, predating Hammurabi, medical texts and astronomical observations, to epic poems and detailed cosmological narratives. The sheer volume and specificity of these texts present a formidable challenge to conventional historical frameworks. They describe a pantheon of gods with human-like characteristics, engaging in political intrigues, passionate disputes, and complex plans. These beings, the Anunnaki, are not distant, ethereal forces. They are depicted as tangible, powerful figures who actively intervened in human affairs, often walking among them. Consider the famous Sumerian king list, a text that records the names of rulers and the lengths of their reigns, beginning with kings who lived before the Great Flood. What's remarkable is that the reigns of these pre-flood kings are often described in terms of thousands of years, a concept utterly alien to human biology, but perhaps not to beings with a vastly different lifespan. Then, post-flood, the reigns abruptly shorten to more recognizable human durations. This list, often considered a historical document, raises immediate questions. Were these early kings actual humans? Or were they perhaps the Anunnaki themselves, or at least their direct descendants or chosen representatives, imbued with their elongated lifespans and wisdom? The very fabric of Sumerian society, from its earliest moments, seems to suggest a guiding hand, a superior intelligence that imparted knowledge, rather than letting it evolve gradually. The tools, the techniques, the sudden leap in cognitive ability, it all begs for an explanation that goes beyond simple organic progression. The quiet hum of scholarly debate in academic halls around the world, though often subdued, cannot entirely ignore the whispers from these ancient texts. They continue to pose uncomfortable questions, forcing us to re-evaluate the very definition of divine intervention. You ever wonder if what we call myth is just history recorded differently? Comment below if this detail surprised you and share your own theory. The gods of Sumer were not the abstract, omnipresent deities found in many later monotheistic traditions. Instead, the Anunnaki were portrayed with striking specificity and personality within the rich tapestry of Sumerian mythology and historical records. They were a diverse assembly, each with distinct roles, domains, and often very human-like flaws and virtues. At the apex of this celestial hierarchy stood figures like Enlil, the Lord of Command, or Lord of the Air, who wielded immense power, often associated with storms, winds, and the fate of humanity. His pronouncements were law, and his temper, often depicted as formidable, could bring about cataclysmic events. His authority was absolute, his influence far-reaching across the burgeoning human settlements. Then there was Enki, the Lord of the Earth, or Lord of the Abzu, the freshwater ocean beneath the earth. Enki was frequently portrayed as the more benevolent and cunning of the two. He was the god of wisdom, magic, arts, and crafts, the great organizer who, according to the texts, oversaw the creation of humans and imparted much of their early knowledge. His domain was the vast oceans and the secrets of the deep, a place of profound mystery and innovative potential. While Enlil represented order and at times harsh judgment, Enki often embodied compassion, problem-solving, and a rebellious streak against his brother's strict decrees. Their dynamic formed a central pivot in many Anunnaki narratives, reflecting not just a struggle for power, but also a clash of ideologies that profoundly impacted the developing human species. Ninhursag, also known as Ninti, Lady of Life, or Mama, was the mother goddess, often depicted as the chief medical officer or geneticist among the Anunnaki. She was associated with creation, healing, and fertility. Her role in the genetic manipulation that supposedly led to the creation of humankind is central to the Anunnaki theory, making her a figure of immense scientific and biological importance, far beyond a simple fertility deity. Imagine her laboratory, not as a mystical temple, but as a sophisticated biological facility buzzing with advanced tools and arcane knowledge. The Sumerian texts describe her working closely with Enki, experimenting with various genetic combinations, seeking to perfect a worker race. Their tools, their methods, are described with a level of detail that transcends simple metaphorical prose, suggesting a grounded scientific process rather than purely magical acts. These figures, along with a host of other Anunnaki, like Nana, the moon god, Utu, the sun god, and Inanna, goddess of love and war, were not just symbols. They engaged in governance, warfare, emotional entanglements, and even had families. They were portrayed as living in magnificent, technologically advanced dwellings, traveling in skyboats or fiery rockets, and possessing weapons of incredible destructive power. The descriptions are vivid, painting a picture of a race of beings who were physically present, interacting directly with their human creations. The relationship was not one of distant worship, but of direct servitude and active instruction. Humans were not just devotees, they were laborers, soldiers, and students. The Anunnaki dictated laws, established kingship, taught agriculture, and imparted astronomical knowledge, creating a societal blueprint that humanity would follow for millennia. The sheer tangibility of these gods within the Sumerian record is what fuels the alternative narrative. It forces a question. Why invent such elaborate physical details for purely symbolic entities? Why describe spaceships and genetic manipulation if the intent was merely poetic? It was into this labyrinth of ancient Sumerian texts that a controversial figure named Zechariah Sitchin stepped, armed with a profound knowledge of ancient languages and an audacious hypothesis that would shake the foundations of established academia. Born in Azerbaijan and educated in Palestine and at the University of London, Sitchin possessed a unique blend of linguistic expertise in Hebrew and other Semitic and European languages, as well as an insatiable curiosity for the origins of civilization. He dedicated his life to translating and interpreting Sumerian cuneiform tablets, not through the lens of traditional mythology, but with an open mind towards their literal meanings. What he found, he argued, was not allegory, but a meticulously detailed historical record of extraterrestrial intervention. Sitchin's seminal work, The 12th Planet, published in 1976, introduced his ancient astronaut theory, positing that humanity's origins lie not solely in terrestrial evolution, but in the genetic manipulation by an advanced extraterrestrial race, the Anunnaki. According to Sitchin, these beings hailed from a mysterious, undiscovered planet in our solar system, which he dubbed Nibiru. This concept of Nibiru, a celestial body with an extraordinarily long elliptical orbit, became the cornerstone of his theory, providing a logical, albeit highly speculative explanation for the Anunnaki's sporadic appearances on Earth throughout recorded history. Sitchin contended that traditional scholars had deliberately or perhaps inadvertently misinterpreted the Sumerian texts, dismissing key elements as myth or misunderstanding their advanced scientific and technological descriptions. He argued that when read literally, these texts describe not gods, but sophisticated beings with advanced technology, complex social structures, and very specific objectives. The shockwaves generated by Sitchin's interpretations were immediate and polarizing. On one side, he garnered a massive following among those disillusioned with conventional explanations for human origins, and those who found profound resonance in the idea of a cosmic heritage. His work offered a compelling, if radical, narrative that connected ancient myths with modern scientific questions, particularly regarding the unexplained leaps in human evolution and the sudden emergence of sophisticated civilizations. On the other side, mainstream archaeologists, historians, and linguists vehemently rejected his claims, labeling his translations as speculative, his methodology as flawed, and his conclusions as pseudoscience. They accused him of cherry-picking evidence, misinterpreting linguistic nuances, and projecting modern concepts onto ancient texts. The debate, which continues fiercely to this day, highlights a fundamental tension between established paradigms and disruptive ideas. For many, Sitchin's work offered a coherent explanation for anomalies that science and religion struggled to reconcile. Why did Sumerian culture appear so suddenly? Where did their advanced astronomical knowledge come from, accurately depicting celestial bodies they shouldn't have been able to observe? What explains the rapid cognitive leap in Homo sapiens? Sitchin's theory provided a unified narrative thread woven through millennia of human history and across diverse cultures. His books, translated into dozens of languages, became bestsellers, cultivating a global audience eager to explore the possibility that our past is far more extraordinary than we've been led to believe. The controversy wasn't just about ancient texts. It was about the very narrative of human identity and our place in the cosmos. It forced a conversation that many in academia preferred to avoid, prompting uncomfortable questions about the limits of conventional thinking. What's your gut feeling about Sitchin's theories? Share it in the comments below. Central to Zechariah, Sitchin's revolutionary Anunnaki theory is the concept of Nibiru, an enigmatic and purportedly undiscovered planet within our own solar system. According to Sitchin's extensive translations and interpretations of ancient Sumerian cosmogony, Nibiru is not just a mythological construct, but a real celestial body, the homeworld of the Anunnaki. Its existence, he argued, was meticulously documented by the Sumerians, who possessed an astronomical understanding far exceeding what conventional history credits them with. Imagine a bustling, complex world, teeming with life and advanced technology, hurtling through the cold, dark void of space on a vast elliptical trajectory, only briefly gracing the inner solar system before retreating into its distant, frigid aphelion. Sitchin claimed that the Sumerians, without the aid of telescopes or modern observational equipment, accurately depicted our solar system with all its planets, including those unknown to modern science until the last few centuries, such as Uranus and Neptune. Moreover, they allegedly included a 12th celestial body, counting the Sun, Moon, and 10 planets, including Nibiru, referred to in some texts as the planet of the crossing. This planet, Nibiru, was described as having an incredibly long orbital period around our Sun, estimated by Sitchin to be approximately 3,600 Earth years. This extended orbit explained why the Anunnaki would only visit Earth sporadically, their appearances coinciding with Nibiru's closest approach to our planet. The planet Nibiru, as Sitchin described it, was a fully formed world, perhaps larger than Earth, and capable of sustaining life. Its atmosphere, however, was said to be gradually depleting, prompting the Anunnaki to embark on a desperate mission to secure vital resources. Their solution, according to the Sumerian texts interpreted by Sitchin, involved mining gold on Earth. Gold, due to its unique properties, was believed by the Anunnaki to be essential for repairing Nibiru's thinning atmosphere, perhaps by being milled into a fine powder and suspended in the upper layers, acting as a reflective shield. This scientific need provided the compelling motivation for their arduous interstellar journey and their subsequent prolonged presence on Earth. The concept of a 12th planet sent ripples through astronomical and scientific communities. Mainstream science largely dismisses the existence of Nibiru, citing a lack of observational evidence and the inconsistencies with known celestial mechanics. However, the idea of an undiscovered planet in the outer reaches of our solar system has, ironically, gained some traction in recent years with the hypothesis of Planet 9 or Planet X, a theoretical planet proposed to explain gravitational anomalies observed in the orbits of trans-Neptunian objects. While this theoretical Planet 9 does not align with Sitchin's Nibiru in terms of orbital period or characteristics, its scientific pursuit demonstrates that the concept of an unseen celestial body influencing our solar system is not entirely outside the realm of modern scientific inquiry. The planet of the crossing thus remains a potent symbol of Sitchin's challenge to conventional wisdom, a testament to the idea that ancient peoples may have possessed knowledge that we are only now beginning to dimly rediscover. The sheer scale of Nibiru's journey, the advanced understanding required to predict its return, and the desperation that drove its inhabitants to a distant primitive world paint a truly epic canvas of cosmic intervention. According to Zecharia Sitchin's captivating narrative, extrapolated from ancient Sumerian texts, the saga of the Anunnaki on Earth began approximately 450,000 years ago. Their home planet, Nibiru, faced an ecological crisis of unprecedented scale. Its atmosphere was dangerously thinning, threatening the very existence of their advanced civilization. Faced with impending doom, the Anunnaki's scientific elite devised a desperate, daring plan to mine vast quantities of gold from a neighboring celestial body, Earth. Gold, with its unique reflective and conductive properties, was believed to be the crucial element required to repair their planet's atmospheric shield, perhaps by being ground into a fine powder and dispersed into the upper atmosphere. Imagine the colossal effort, the sheer technological marvel required for such an interstellar undertaking. These were not mere exploratory probes. These were massive expeditions, carrying thousands of Anunnaki across the immense void of space from their distant homeworld as it made its closest approach to our solar system. Their arrival on Earth would have been nothing short of spectacular, perhaps mistaken by early hominids as the descent of fiery chariots or terrifying celestial beings. The texts describe their skyboats or rockets landing in the waters of the Persian Gulf, setting up their first terrestrial operations. The landscape they encountered would have been vastly different from the lush, advanced world they left behind. A raw, untamed Earth, still in the throes of its geological and biological evolution. The air would have been thick with the scent of primeval forests and damp earth, the sounds dominated by unfamiliar creatures. Their initial settlement, according to Sitchin, was in Eridu, meaning home in the faraway built, a city frequently cited in Sumerian records as the oldest city in the world. It was here, in the marshy delta lands, that Enki, the chief scientist and leader of the first expedition, established the central command and initial mining operations. The Anunnaki were described as highly organized, with a clear hierarchy and division of labor. Their primary objective was clear: extract gold. The earliest operations were likely alluvial, extracting gold from riverbeds and shallow mines, requiring immense effort and a specialized workforce. The arduous nature of this labor, under the alien conditions of a nascent Earth, would quickly become a critical point of contention within their ranks. The challenges were immense: the scorching Mesopotamian sun, the unfamiliar pathogens, the physical demands of mining a raw planet. These were not tasks for casual visitors. The Anunnaki, though advanced, were not immune to the rigors of sustained manual labor. The descriptions in the tablets paint a picture of a sophisticated yet physically demanding industrial enterprise. They built cities, established ports, and created complex infrastructure to support their mining efforts and transport the precious metal back to their homeworld. The sheer ambition of this project, spanning millennia, speaks to the gravity of Nibiru's atmospheric crisis and the Anunnaki's advanced capabilities. The meticulous planning, the deployment of specialized personnel, the establishment of sophisticated technologies, it all points to a venture far beyond the simple collection of resources. It was a mission critical for the survival of an entire civilization, unfolding on a planetary scale. The grueling toil of gold mining on a primordial Earth soon began to take its toll on the Anunnaki. Initially, the heavy manual labor was undertaken by the Igigi, a class of lesser Anunnaki, described as the rank-and-file workers, those who executed the commands of the higher-ranking council members like Enlil and Enki. Imagine them, clad in practical, durable garments suited for physical exertion, perhaps with helmets or respirators to deal with dust and unfamiliar atmospheric conditions, their faces streaked with sweat and grime from endless hours of digging, sifting, and hauling. The work was relentless, the heat often oppressive, and the reward for them was simply the continuation of their existence under harsh command. The Sumerian texts, particularly the Atrahasis epic, vividly describe the growing discontent among these Igigi. They had journeyed across the cosmos, not for eternal servitude, but presumably for a purpose that would benefit their entire species. Yet, on Earth, their reality was one of endless drudgery in the gold mines of the Abzu, southern Africa, according to Sitchin's interpretations. For millennia, they toiled, the burden of their task becoming increasingly unbearable. The complaints grew louder, whispers turning into grumbles, then into open lamentations. They cried out against the great burden and the hard labor imposed upon them. The mood among the Igigi festered, a simmering cauldron of resentment ready to boil over. The tension reached a critical breaking point. The narrative recounts a pivotal moment when the Igigi, weary and exasperated, finally revolted. They threw down their tools, set fire to their mining equipment, and surrounded the dwelling of Enlil, the commander-in-chief, whose strict decrees governed their lives. This was not a minor protest. It was a full-blown mutiny, a desperate act of defiance against their superiors. The air would have been thick with the smoke of burning structures, the shouts of the rebellious workers echoing across the desolate mining camps, a stark sound against the usual hum of mechanical operations and the clatter of tools. The shock waves of this rebellion reverberated through the Anunnaki hierarchy. It was an unprecedented challenge to their authority, threatening not only their mission, but potentially the stability of their entire expedition. The High Council of the Anunnaki convened an emergency session. Enlil, enraged by the insubordination, initially advocated for harsh repression, perhaps even the annihilation of the rebellious Igigi. However, other Anunnaki, particularly Enki, recognized the severity of the crisis. They understood that the Igigi's grievances were legitimate, and that simply crushing the rebellion would not solve the fundamental problem, the immense physical burden of the gold mining operation. The survival of Nibiru depended on this gold, and without a willing workforce, the mission was doomed. This internal strife, this clash between authority and the demands of labor, forced the Anunnaki to confront a profound dilemma. They needed gold, but their own kind could no longer bear the weight of its extraction. This was the moment that set the stage for a decision that would forever alter the course of life on Earth, leading directly to the desperate yet ingenious solution of creating a new worker race, humanity itself. The mutiny of the Igigi, therefore, isn't just a historical anecdote, it's the genesis point for the human saga, a dramatic turning point in the epic tale of cosmic intervention. Faced with the Igigi's mutiny and the existential threat to Nibiru if the gold mining ceased, the Anunnaki High Council was forced to devise a radical solution. The idea was put forth by Enki, the Lord of Wisdom and Science, renowned for his ingenuity and his domain over life-giving waters and the secrets of creation. His proposition was audacious, controversial, and ultimately epoch-defining: to create a primitive worker, Lulu in Sumerian, a new species that could bear the heavy burden of labor, freeing the Anunnaki from their arduous tasks. This was not merely about creating a workforce, it was about genetic engineering on a planetary scale. The concept was revolutionary, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible, even for the advanced Anunnaki. The Sumerian texts, particularly the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis epic, describe this creation event with surprising clarity, albeit through an ancient linguistic lens. Enki, along with Ninhursag, the chief medical officer and goddess of creation, became the primary architects of this bioengineering project. Their laboratory, a place of intense scientific experimentation, was not a mystical temple, but a sophisticated facility, perhaps filled with glowing vats, humming machinery, and intricate instruments, all designed to manipulate the very fabric of life. The challenge was to combine the genetic material of an existing hominid species on Earth with the advanced DNA of the Anunnaki. This wasn't a simple pairing, it was a complex fusion, aimed at imparting specific traits necessary for labor, obedience, and intelligence, but not so much as to challenge their creators. The early attempts were fraught with failures, depicted in the texts as malformed beings or creatures that could not live. These were not biblical missteps of an omnipotent deity, but the expected setbacks of a scientific process, trial and error in a genetic laboratory. The descriptions are remarkably detailed: beings with too many limbs, missing organs, or unable to function. It paints a picture of intense, frustrating experimentation, with Enki and Ninhursag meticulously analyzing each failure, tweaking their genetic formulas, striving for perfection. The pressure on them must have been immense. The fate of their entire civilization back on Nibiru hung in the balance. The air in their lab would have been thick with a sense of urgency, perhaps the metallic tang of chemical reactions and the nervous energy of groundbreaking discovery. Finally, after numerous trials, a breakthrough occurred. Using the blood, DNA, of a slain Anunnaki god known as Gestu-E, often translated as God whose understanding is broad, combined with the clay, genetic material, of an already existing hominid, the first successful Lulu was created. This clay was likely the genetic blueprint of Homo erectus, or an early archaic Homo sapiens already present on Earth. The resulting creature was an upright, walking, intelligent being, capable of understanding commands, communicating, and most importantly, performing the physical labor required in the gold mines. This moment, the birth of the Adamu, often linked to the biblical Adam, marked a profound turning point. It was the moment Homo sapiens, as we know ourselves, allegedly came into being not through gradual evolution, but through deliberate extraterrestrial genetic engineering. Our very existence, therefore, would be rooted in a cosmic mining operation, a utilitarian act born of necessity rather than a spiritual act of divine creation. Does this origin story resonate with you more than traditional ones? Share your thoughts below. With the successful creation of the Lulu, the primitive worker, humanity's initial purpose was unequivocally defined: to serve the Anunnaki. The Sumerian texts leave no room for ambiguity on this point. The Lulu was designed, engineered, and brought into existence specifically to shoulder the heavy burden of gold mining, freeing the Anunnaki from their grueling labor. Imagine the vast gold mines, previously worked by the rebellious Igigi, now teeming with these new beings. Their movements would be purposeful, guided by the Anunnaki supervisors who now had a readily available, compliant workforce. The air would still carry the dust and the metallic scent of excavation, but the grumbling and discontent would be replaced by the rhythmic sounds of concerted labor. Humanity, in this narrative, was essentially a bioengineered tool, a living instrument to fulfill a crucial, life-sustaining mission for an alien species. Our intelligence, our capacity for complex thought, our very physical form, all were tailored for a specific job. This perspective offers a radically different lens through which to view human purpose and destiny. We were not born of an aimless evolutionary process, nor of a purely benevolent divine hand. Instead, we were born of necessity, of an urgent interstellar resource crisis. The implications of this are staggering, resonating through our collective unconscious and perhaps even influencing the societal structures we have built ourselves. The Anunnaki taught the Lulu how to operate tools, how to understand basic commands, and how to organize themselves for optimal efficiency in the mines. This instruction, this imparting of foundational skills, was not out of altruism, but out of pragmatic need. The workers needed to be effective. The Sumerian accounts describe humanity as being taught agriculture, animal husbandry, and even basic forms of governance, all intended to support the Anunnaki's presence and the mining operations. These weren't lessons for self-empowerment. They were training for functional servitude, albeit one that inadvertently laid the groundwork for future human civilization. The earliest cities, therefore, could be seen as extensions of Anunnaki logistical hubs, designed to sustain their operations and control their worker population. This foundational relationship of servitude permeated early human societies. The concept of powerful, demanding gods who required tribute, labor, and obedience is a recurring theme in virtually all ancient civilizations. From the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia, which served as homes for the Anunnaki and centers for offering, to the sacrificial rituals of various cultures, the echoes of this master-servant dynamic are evident. If humanity was indeed created as a Lulu, then our historical tendency towards hierarchical structures, our innate drive to build, to work, and to organize, could be interpreted not just as social evolution, but as a deep-seated, genetically imprinted legacy of our engineered purpose. It raises profound questions about free will, self-determination, and the extent to which our destiny might have been preordained by our extraterrestrial creators. The idea that our very drive to excel, to build, to innovate might ultimately stem from a latent program for efficient labor is a disquieting yet compelling thought. This fundamental aspect of our existence as a created species, if true, shifts the entire understanding of what it means to be human and our place in the cosmic order. One of the most profound and universally recognized narratives across ancient cultures is that of a great flood, a cataclysmic deluge that wiped out almost all life on Earth. From the biblical story of Noah's Ark to indigenous myths across continents, the motif of a global flood is remarkably consistent. However, the Sumerian version, particularly as found in the Atrahasis epic and the Gilgamesh epic, offers a startlingly different perspective, one deeply intertwined with the Anunnaki and humanity's contested existence. Here, the flood isn't simply a natural disaster or an act of divine punishment. It's a deliberate, calculated decision by the Anunnaki, and a turning point in their relationship with their human creations. According to Sitchin's interpretation, as millennia passed, humanity prospered and multiplied, perhaps beyond the Anunnaki's original projections. The primitive workers, initially intended to be simple and controllable, had grown too numerous, too noisy, and perhaps too much of a burden on the Anunnaki's strained resources. The texts describe Enlil, the commander-in-chief, becoming increasingly annoyed by the clamor of humankind. their constant chatter and growing population disturbing his peace and disrupting the Anunnaki's operations. His patience wore thin, reaching a breaking point. This wasn't about sin or moral failing, but about sheer inconvenience and a perceived loss of control over their creation. Enlil decided that the solution was total annihilation. He resolved to unleash a massive flood upon the Earth, caused by the impending close approach of Nibiru and its gravitational disruption, ensuring that no human would survive. This decision was met with resistance from Enki, the geneticist and creator of humanity, who felt a paternal bond with his creation. Enki, often depicted as the benevolent trickster, could not bring himself to allow humanity to be completely wiped out. Defying Enlil's strict oath of secrecy regarding the impending cataclysm, Enki sought to preserve a remnant of humankind. He found a righteous man, a Sumerian king or priest named Utnapishtim, known as Ziusudra in earlier Sumerian texts, and later as Noah in the Abrahamic traditions. Enki communicated with Utnapishtim, not directly, but by speaking through the reed walls of his hut, thus technically not breaking his oath. He instructed Utnapishtim to build a great ship, a multi-storied vessel designed to withstand the coming deluge, and to bring aboard his family, craftsmen, and the seeds of all living things, the seed of all life. Imagine the frantic, desperate scramble to build such a vessel, the urgent gathering of provisions, the fear and uncertainty as the world around them remained oblivious to the impending doom. The descriptions of the rising waters, the terrifying winds, and the utter devastation are chillingly consistent with flood narratives worldwide. The Great Flood raged for days and nights, engulfing the earth, wiping clean the slate of humanity save for Utnapishtim and his chosen few. When the waters finally receded and Utnapishtim emerged, the Anunnaki were astonished. Enlil, upon discovering that humans had survived, was initially furious. But Enki revealed his disobedience and eventually convinced Enlil of the value of preserving a segment of humanity. This moment was another pivotal turning point. Humanity's existence, once solely for labor, now had a conditional reprieve. The survivors would be granted a new covenant, a new purpose, and a new phase in their relationship with their creators. It was an act of selective survival, a divine intervention that reshaped the destiny of the remaining few and, by extension, all of humanity. Do you think this version of the flood makes more sense than the others? Tell us why in the comments. With the devastation of the Great Flood behind them, a new era dawned for humanity and the Anunnaki. The world was a sodden, desolate canvas, needing to be repopulated and rebuilt. The surviving human remnant, led by figures like Utnapishtim, now faced the monumental task of re-establishing civilization from scratch. But they were not entirely alone. The Anunnaki, having grudgingly accepted humanity's continued existence, recognized the need for guidance in this post-Diluvian world. Their gold mining operations, though severely impacted, still required a workforce, and the Anunnaki themselves were in need of sustenance and support on Earth. According to the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki actively supervised and assisted in the rebuilding process. They didn't just stand by, they resumed their role as divine architects, guiding humanity in the monumental task of urban planning, agriculture, and social organization. This era saw the re-establishment of major cities, not as arbitrary settlements, but often in locations predetermined by the Anunnaki, aligning with their own logistical and strategic needs. The blueprints for these cities, their intricate irrigation systems, and their monumental structures were purportedly provided by the Anunnaki themselves, a testament to their advanced understanding of engineering and urban design. A crucial aspect of this post-flood guidance was the establishment of kingship. The Sumerian king list explicitly states, "After the flood, kingship descended from heaven." This phrase is incredibly significant, suggesting that the concept of monarchical rule, of a divinely appointed leader, was not an organic human invention, but an institution directly introduced by the Anunnaki. These kings were often described as intermediaries between humanity and the gods, ruling by divine right, ensuring the orderly functioning of society and facilitating the flow of resources and tribute to their celestial overlords. Their power and legitimacy were derived directly from the Anunnaki, reinforcing the hierarchical structure of their relationship. The earliest human rulers then were not elected officials or warlords, but chosen representatives, perhaps even blood descendants of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki also re-imparted crucial knowledge necessary for survival and prosperity. They taught advanced agricultural techniques, including irrigation systems that transformed the arid Mesopotamian plains into fertile farmlands. They re-established animal husbandry, providing domesticated species to the survivors. Furthermore, they resumed teaching astronomy, mathematics, and writing, the very foundations of Sumerian intellectual prowess. This wasn't a slow evolutionary process of discovery for humanity. It was a re-injection of sophisticated knowledge into a nascent civilization, accelerating its development at an astonishing pace. The sudden appearance of highly complex agricultural methods, advanced calendrical systems, and sophisticated architectural principles in post-flood Sumeria reinforces the idea of an external guiding hand. The meticulous detail in the texts describing these refoundations paints a picture of deliberate, systematic reconstruction, orchestrated by beings who possessed a far superior understanding of how to build and maintain a complex society. This second phase of human-Anunnaki interaction solidified humanity's role as caretakers of the earth and servants to their creators, but with a renewed sense of purpose and structure under their watchful eyes. One of the most perplexing aspects of ancient Sumerian civilization, and indeed many other early cultures, is the apparent leap in advanced knowledge they possessed, seemingly without a prolonged period of gradual discovery. How did a society emerging from relative primitivism suddenly master complex astronomy, sophisticated mathematics, and monumental engineering? Conventional archaeology often attributes these advancements to genius and observation, but the Anunnaki theory suggests a more direct and extraordinary source, knowledge directly imparted by their extraterrestrial creators. The sheer scope and accuracy of this knowledge, as depicted in Sumerian texts, challenge the very timeline of human intellectual development. Consider Sumerian astronomy. Their star charts and cosmological diagrams were incredibly detailed, depicting celestial bodies and orbital mechanics that should have been utterly invisible to the naked eye. They correctly identified all the planets in our solar system, including Uranus and Neptune, which were not discovered by modern telescopes until the 18th and 19th centuries, respectively. More astonishingly, they depicted these planets with accurate relative sizes and positions, even including the controversial planet Nibiru as a fully formed member of our solar system. How could a civilization, thousands of years before Galileo, possess such profound understanding of distant celestial mechanics? The Anunnaki explanation posits that this knowledge wasn't discovered, it was taught. They, as visitors from another planet, possessed an inherent understanding of the solar system's layout and mechanics, which they conveyed to their human scribes. In mathematics, the Sumerians developed a sexagesimal base 60 number system, which profoundly influenced later civilizations. This system, while complex, allowed for sophisticated calculations and was instrumental in their astronomical observations and architectural designs. Why base 60? This is not a naturally intuitive system for a developing species. The Anunnaki theory suggests that this system was part of the advanced mathematical framework brought by the Anunnaki, a standardized system perhaps used on their homeworld. which they then imparted to their human students to facilitate tasks requiring precise measurement and calculation. This system is still visible today in our measurement of time, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and angles, 360 degrees in a circle. Furthermore, the architectural prowess of the Sumerians, particularly their construction of massive ziggurats and complex irrigation networks, hints at advanced engineering principles. These structures required not only sophisticated planning, but also an understanding of materials, labor organization, and structural integrity that seemed to emerge fully formed. The Anunnaki, with their presumed advanced technology, would have possessed this knowledge, perhaps even providing the tools or methodologies to construct these monumental works. The sheer scale and precision of some ancient structures, even beyond Mesopotamia, have often puzzled modern engineers. The Anunnaki narrative offers an explanation, direct instruction, and potentially even technological assistance from an advanced alien species. This knowledge, rather than slowly evolving through human ingenuity alone, was a rapid download, a profound gift, or imposition, depending on your perspective, that propelled humanity forward at an unprecedented speed, shaping the very intellectual framework of all subsequent human civilizations. The impact of this imparted wisdom is indelible, woven into the very fabric of our scientific and mathematical heritage. Beyond the written records, the physical landscape of our planet is dotted with archaeological anomalies and unexplained structures that seem to defy conventional historical explanations. These ancient marvels, often predating known civilizations or exhibiting engineering capabilities far beyond their supposed technological context, provide compelling, albeit circumstantial evidence that resonates deeply with the Anunnaki theory. They are silent testaments to a forgotten past, challenging archaeologists and historians to consider possibilities beyond the established narrative. The very presence of such structures across diverse geographical locations reinforces the idea of a widespread pre-human or non-human influence. Consider Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, a site that has utterly reshaped our understanding of early human history. Discovered in the mid-1990s, this complex of massive, intricately carved stone pillars, arranged in circular formations, dates back to approximately 9,600 BCE, predating Stonehenge by 6,000 years and the invention of agriculture by over a millennium. It is arguably the oldest known temple complex in the world, built by hunter-gatherers. How did nomadic peoples, supposedly lacking organized labor, metal tools, or sophisticated engineering, manage to quarry, transport, and erect monolithic stones weighing up to 20 tons each, and then carve them with astonishingly detailed reliefs of animals and symbols? The sheer organizational effort and technical skill required seem to contradict everything we thought we knew about that period of human development. The Anunnaki theory suggests that Göbekli Tepe could be a site influenced by, or even built with the direct assistance of, advanced beings, a place of convergence or instruction, long before humanity developed the means to construct such an edifice independently. The atmosphere of ancient mystery permeates the very dust particles clinging to these ancient stones. Then there are the megalithic structures found worldwide, from the precision-cut cyclopean walls of Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo in Peru, whose perfectly interlocking stones fit without mortar, defying earthquake for millennia, to the enigmatic underwater structures off the coast of Japan, Yonaguni Monument. These structures often feature massive stones, sometimes weighing hundreds of tons, moved and shaped with a precision that puzzles modern engineers, even with today's technology. How were these stones transported over vast distances and then positioned with such exactitude? The idea of thousands of primitive workers with ropes and rollers stretches credulity for some, particularly when considering the intricate cuts and polished surfaces. If the Anunnaki possessed advanced anti-gravity technology or sonic tools capable of cutting and lifting immense stones, as some interpretations of Sumerian texts suggest, e.g., the tablets of destiny, conferring powers to move mountains, then these structures suddenly become far more explicable. Even the ancient Nazca lines in Peru, vast geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, depict images that can only be fully appreciated from an aerial perspective. While conventional explanations point to ritualistic or astronomical purposes, the sheer scale and the need for an overhead vantage point have led some to speculate if they were meant as signals or markers for airborne craft, perhaps those of the Anunnaki. These anomalies, scattered across the globe and through deep time, speak to a consistent pattern of advanced capabilities appearing unexpectedly in human history. They are not isolated incidents, but a global tapestry of inexplicable feats, each whispering a potential secret of an intelligence beyond humanity's early grasp. The persistent questions surrounding these sites continue to fuel the narrative of an external, highly advanced influence on our planet's ancient past. The narrative of gods descending from the sky, imparting knowledge and interacting with humanity, is not exclusive to Sumeria. Remarkably, similar myths and religious stories resonate across geographically disparate cultures, spanning continents and millennia. These striking parallels, often dismissed as mere coincidences or independent evolutions of similar archetypes, become profoundly significant when viewed through the lens of the Anunnaki theory. The consistency of these themes suggests not isolated invention, but a shared historical memory, a collective echo of an actual global event or series of events. It forces a challenging question: why do so many diverse cultures tell essentially the same story? Consider the ancient Egyptian pantheon. The Neteru, their gods, were often depicted as semi-divine beings who ruled Egypt in a golden age before the pharaohs. They were said to have arrived from the sky, possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and medicine, and directly intervened in human affairs, establishing civilization along the Nile. Figures like Osiris, Isis, and Thoth, with their unique powers and roles, bear striking resemblances to the Anunnaki in their capacity as civilizers and rulers. The concept of sky gods guiding humanity is deeply ingrained in Egyptian mythology, much like the Anunnaki's role in Mesopotamia. The intricate details of Egyptian cosmology, particularly the emphasis on stellar origins and cycles, seem to mirror the Sumerian fascination with celestial bodies and their influence. The dry, arid air of the desert and the vibrant life of the Nile would have been the backdrop to these stories, passed down through countless generations. Further afield, across the vast oceans in Mesoamerica, civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs speak of powerful beings who came from the stars, known as feathered serpents, or sky gods, such as Quetzalcoatl. These deities were credited with bringing agriculture, calendars, writing, and sophisticated architectural knowledge. The Mayas' astonishingly accurate astronomical calendars and their complex understanding of celestial cycles, much like the Sumerians, seem to appear with an unexplained level of sophistication. Their descriptions of cosmic journeys and divine instructors arriving in strange vessels from the heavens bear a powerful thematic resonance with the Anunnaki accounts. The lush, humid jungles of Central America would have enveloped these ancient traditions, keeping their secrets for centuries. Even in ancient India, the Vedas and Puranas describe Vimanas, flying machines used by their gods, who engaged in epic battles and wielded incredibly destructive weapons, reminiscent of advanced technology. The Hindu pantheon, with its complex hierarchies and divine interventions, also features gods who descend to Earth, interact with humans, and guide their development. From the Dogon tribe of Mali, who possess intricate knowledge of the Sirius star system that they claim was given to them by beings from that very star, to Aboriginal legends of sky people who taught them how to live. The pattern is consistent. These global myths, when stripped of their cultural embellishments, reveal a core narrative that humanity was not alone in its formative stages, but was guided, influenced, and perhaps even created by advanced beings from beyond Earth. This worldwide tapestry of similar stories provides a compelling argument for a shared, perhaps even singular point of origin for many of humanity's most enduring beliefs and historical traditions. The whisper of the cosmos, it seems, has echoed across all corners of our planet. The radical claims put forth by Zecharia Sitchin and other proponents of the ancient astronaut theory have inevitably created a significant rift between alternative researchers and mainstream academia. This isn't just a polite disagreement, it's a fierce intellectual battle, a clash of paradigms that exposes deep-seated biases and defensiveness within established scientific and historical circles. The controversy isn't merely about the interpretation of ancient texts. It's about the very narrative of human origins, challenging the foundational principles upon which our understanding of history, religion, and evolution has been built for centuries. The halls of universities, the quiet archives of museums, and the bustling sites of archaeological digs become silent battlegrounds in this intellectual war. Mainstream archaeologists, linguists, and historians largely dismiss Sitchin's work as pseudoscience. Their arguments are often rooted in specific criticisms. 1. Linguistic misinterpretation. Critics contend that Sitchin's translations are often selective, taking words out of context and assigning modern technological meanings to ancient metaphors or allegories. They argue that he imposes a predetermined narrative onto the texts, rather than letting the texts speak for themselves within their cultural context. 2. Lack of peer review. Sitchin's theories were not published in peer-reviewed academic journals, which is the gold standard for scientific acceptance. Instead, they reached the public through popular books, bypassing the rigorous scrutiny of established scholarship. 3. Absence of physical evidence. Despite the claims of advanced Anunnaki technology, critics point to the lack of tangible archaeological evidence. No spaceship parts, no advanced tools, no undeniable remnants of alien presence that couldn't be explained by human ingenuity or natural phenomena. 4. Challenging established timelines. Accepting the Anunnaki theory would require a complete overhaul of established archaeological, anthropological, and evolutionary timelines, an undertaking that many scholars deem too radical and unsupported by conventional data. It would mean rewriting textbooks, challenging long-held beliefs, and admitting that generations of scholarship might have missed a fundamental truth. However, proponents of the Anunnaki theory argue that mainstream academia's resistance is born out of intellectual conservatism, fear of ridicule, and a vested interest in maintaining existing paradigms. They suggest that 1. Bias against disruptive ideas. The scientific community, while ostensibly open to new ideas, can be notoriously resistant to theories that fundamentally challenge established frameworks, especially those touching upon sensitive areas like human origins and religion. Admitting an extraterrestrial influence would have profound theological and philosophical implications. 2. Selective dismissal of anomalies. Critics of the mainstream argue that anomalies, such as Göbekli Tepe, advanced Sumerian astronomy, or megalithic structures, are often simply ignored or given unsatisfying, ad hoc explanations rather than being seriously considered as evidence for an alternative narrative. 3. Ethnocentric interpretation. Some alternative theorists suggest that mainstream scholars apply an ethnocentric bias, struggling to reconcile ancient peoples' advanced knowledge with their primitive status, thus dismissing anything that doesn't fit the linear progression model of human development. The debate, therefore, is not just about facts, but about interpretation, methodology, and the willingness to expand the boundaries of what is considered possible. For many, the resistance of mainstream academia only strengthens the perception that there is a truth being suppressed or simply overlooked, a grand narrative that demands a wider, more open-minded investigation. The implications of embracing the Anunnaki theory are so vast, touching upon our understanding of God, evolution, consciousness, and our place in the universe, that the reluctance to engage with it seriously is perhaps understandable. Yet it leaves many feeling that crucial questions remain unanswered. Perhaps one of the most compelling, albeit controversial areas where the Anunnaki theory intersects with modern science is in the realm of human biology, specifically our DNA. The rapid and unexplained cognitive leap in Homo sapiens, often referred to as the missing link in human evolution, has long puzzled scientists. While our evolutionary lineage from earlier hominids is generally understood, the sudden emergence of abstract thought, complex language, artistic expression, and advanced problem-solving skills, seemingly without a direct gradual evolutionary precursor, remains a profound mystery. If we were simply the product of natural selection, why such a dramatic acceleration in mental capacity? The Anunnaki theory offers a radical explanation: genetic manipulation. As detailed in the Sumerian accounts, Enki and Ninhursag experimented with the genetic material of an existing hominid on Earth, combining it with their own advanced DNA to create the Lulu. This process, as described, aligns remarkably well with the concept of a genetic jumpstart, an accelerated evolutionary development orchestrated by an external, intelligent force. If true, then the missing link isn't missing. It was deliberately inserted. Our modern DNA, therefore, would contain the indelible genetic imprint of our extraterrestrial creators, a living testament to an ancient cosmic intervention. While direct, irrefutable evidence for Anunnaki DNA in human genes remains elusive and highly speculative, certain aspects of our genetic makeup have continued to intrigue scientists. The sheer complexity of the human genome, the vast stretches of junk DNA, non-coding DNA, whose purpose is still largely unknown, and the rapid, seemingly unexplainable acceleration of cognitive abilities in Homo sapiens compared to our hominid ancestors, all provide fertile ground for speculative theories. Could some of this junk DNA be remnants of ancient genetic experiments, dormant sequences, or even a form of biological signature left by our supposed creators? The idea of a seed of Anunnaki intelligence, carefully woven into our double helix, presents a provocative challenge to purely naturalistic evolutionary models. The argument isn't that human evolution didn't occur, rather that it wasn't an entirely natural, unassisted process. The Anunnaki intervention, if it happened, wouldn't negate evolution, but would have profoundly influenced and directed its trajectory at a crucial juncture. It would explain the seemingly out-of-place intelligence that allowed early humans to develop complex language, art, and tools at a speed that defies simple environmental pressures. This theory suggests that the spark of genius, the capacity for profound abstract thought, and our innate drive for innovation might not be solely an earthbound phenomenon, but a cosmic inheritance. The subtle whispers in our genetic code, the echoes of a distant past, continue to beckon scientists and theorists alike to look beyond the conventional explanations and consider the astonishing possibility that our very biological blueprint holds the key to an extraterrestrial heritage. The implications, again, are immense. If we were engineered, what does that say about our true purpose and the ultimate architects of our destiny? If the Anunnaki did indeed play such a pivotal role in humanity's genesis and early development, a profound question inevitably arises. Where are they now? Did they truly depart Earth, or do they maintain a hidden, perhaps even ongoing influence over human affairs? This lingering question fuels speculation, connecting ancient myths with modern theories of secret societies, hidden agendas, and even the continued presence of extraterrestrial intelligences. The idea of an unseen hand guiding humanity, or at least observing us from the shadows, is a persistent thread in many alternative narratives. The cool, silent contemplation of this possibility can be unsettling, yet compelling. According to Sitchin's interpretation of the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki eventually left Earth. Their mission to save Nibiru with Earth's gold was presumably accomplished, and with humanity now a self-sustaining workforce and civilization builder, their direct, overt presence was no longer necessary. The texts describe a gradual withdrawal, a departure to the heavens, leaving humanity to manage the kingdoms and civilizations they had helped establish, albeit under the distant watch of their gods. This departure is often linked to the receding of Nibiru from the inner solar system, making prolonged visits impractical until its next return cycle. The idea of an 3,600-year cycle means that if they left at a certain point, they would not return for a very, very long time. However, the complete and absolute departure is often questioned by those who delve deeper into the implications of their alleged influence. Could a race that engineered our very being simply abandon their creation entirely? Some theories posit that a contingent of Anunnaki might have remained on Earth, perhaps in hidden bases or integrated into early human leadership, subtly guiding or manipulating events from behind the scenes. This gives rise to notions of secret societies, bloodlines, and ancient lineages that might still carry the Anunnaki's genetic legacy or knowledge, acting as custodians or agents of their distant creators. The whispers of powerful, shadowy organizations that control global events, passed down through generations, could be reinterpreted through this lens. Others speculate about the Anunnaki's eventual return. If Nibiru is indeed on a 3,600-year orbital cycle, then a return would be inevitable, bringing with it a reckoning or a new phase of interaction. Ancient prophecies across various cultures speak of a return of the gods, or a celestial event that will usher in a new era. Could these prophecies be veiled memories or premonitions of Nibiru's cyclical return and the re-engagement of its inhabitants with their human creations? The anticipation of such an event can evoke a range of emotions, from fear to profound hope, depending on one's perspective on the Anunnaki's intentions. The stars, once a source of wonder, now become a potential harbinger of truth or confrontation. The persistent fascination with UFOs, alien encounters, and government secrecy surrounding extraterrestrial life also finds a new context within the Anunnaki narrative. Could modern sightings be related to the ongoing presence of Anunnaki or their descendants monitoring human progress? The idea of a hidden, overarching design for humanity, guided by an intelligence far superior to our own, adds a layer of complexity to our understanding of free will and destiny. The Anunnaki, whether present or absent, continue to cast a long shadow over humanity's past, present, and potential future, challenging us to keep our minds open to the extraordinary possibilities that lie beyond the veil of conventional understanding. The universe, it seems, holds more secrets than we can possibly imagine, and some of them might be closer than we think. We have journeyed through the ancient sands of Mesopotamia, navigated the complex linguistic interpretations of Zecharia Sitchin, and explored the profound implications of the Anunnaki theory, that humanity's origins are not purely terrestrial, but the result of deliberate genetic engineering by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. From the sudden rise of Sumerian culture and its astonishing knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, to the global myths of sky gods and the perplexing anomalies in our own DNA, the threads of this narrative weave a tapestry that challenges every conventional understanding of our past. We've questioned the meaning of myth, the nature of gods, and the very purpose of our existence, moving beyond simple belief to a provocative re-evaluation of history itself. The Anunnaki theory posits that we were created as a worker race, the Lulu, designed to mine gold for a dying planet, Nibiru. We have seen how the Igigi mutiny led to our creation, how Enlil's wrath brought the Great Flood, and how Enki's compassion ensured our survival. We've delved into the advanced knowledge imparted by these beings, reflected in Sumerian science and engineering, and observed the archaeological anomalies, like Göbekli Tepe, that hint at an intelligence beyond early human capabilities. We've traced the echoes of this story across global myths, finding similar narratives of sky gods in Egypt, Mesoamerica, and India. And finally, we've pondered the lingering questions, the missing links in our evolution, the genetic spark, and the mysterious whereabouts of our supposed creators. Whether you embrace it as a plausible truth or dismiss it as fascinating speculation, the Anunnaki theory forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about our place in the cosmos. It challenges us to look beyond the accepted narratives, to scrutinize the evidence with fresh eyes, and to consider the possibility that the universe is far more complex and our origins far more extraordinary than we have ever dared to imagine. It's a call to intellectual courage, to question everything, and to seek knowledge beyond the surface. The journey doesn't end here. It merely opens a new chapter in our quest for truth. The echoes of the Anunnaki resonate not just in ancient texts, but in the very fabric of our being, inviting us to explore the vast, uncharted territories of our collective past and potential future. The conversation, the exploration, and the search for answers must continue. If this content has opened your mind, comment below, "I made it to the end." This helps us understand who is truly seeking knowledge beyond the surface. Like the video, subscribe to the channel now and hit that bell icon, because the next episodes are going even deeper. And don't leave without clicking on the next video. It's the continuation of this journey.